there, welcome back. So, you've likely heard the term boundaries, but maybe you're not clear on what exactly it means or how to go about setting boundaries. So, let's dive in. I believe as we navigate perimenopause, it is vital to assess who and what we give our time and energy to be much more selective. And in order to do that, we need to create boundaries. That could look like boundaries with friends, family members, colleagues, clients, kids, and even your pets. Although I have a really hard time with that one. So, we can easily blame our declining hormones for low energy, crappy sleep, moodiness, overwhelmed stress, but you're also feeling this way because you probably lack healthy boundaries. We see this over and over again with women who come to work with us in the Hormone Rescue program. They have spent most of their lives overgiving, over-delivering, overdoing, overworking, and saying yes to everyone and everything else. They want to control things. I'm talking to you, my type A ladies, all while neglecting themselves in the process. And as a result, their health declines. And listen, I've been there myself. This is something that I have worked on for years and I am still working on. I have had to reassess several relationships. So, what exactly is a boundary? So I think of a boundary as an invisible line that you create that shouldn't be crossed. So when it comes to relationships specifically, a boundary defines where our responsibility and control for another person begins and ends. Let me say that again. When it comes to relationships, a boundary defines where our responsibility and control for another person begins and ends. So when somebody has leaky boundaries, it means that they don't stick to this line. They bend easily, they believe that they're responsible for another person, they try to control somebody else, they worry about things that are not theirs to worry about, they try to fix other people's problems, and often they feel resentment towards another person. And somebody who has leaky boundaries may come to the realization at some point that they need to create firm boundaries. And unfortunately, what ends up often happening is they create boundaries that are so rigid that it can be quite jarring for the person on the receiving end. And this can leave a person feeling really dismissed or even abandoned. Now, while another person's reaction isn't your responsibility, I do believe that it's important to create loving boundaries, effectively communicating with somebody else and letting them know what you will and will not stand for. Now, I believe that we can create loving boundaries like this with another human without being mean, harsh, or resulting in them feeling isolated. But the secret is respectful communication with a side of compassion. We can all use a little more compassion. And by communication, I mean being clear on what you need, but also listening. Listening has become such a lost art nowadays, especially in relationships. So many of us are disconnected and think about what we want to say next instead of truly listening to the other person. When we listen, as in looking somebody directly in the eyes when they speak versus being distracted, we're able to connect on such an intimate level. And by default, we become more compassionate towards them. It really can make a person feel seen, heard, and quite frankly, understood. Now, all that said, it's important to take a step back and assess where and how you spend your time and energy. So you may not even realize how often you're giving to others while putting your own needs on the back burner. It's actually not fair to other people when you don't create healthy boundaries, because when you overgive and somebody may not appreciate it or you don't perceive them to appreciate it, you can become resentful. You can become angry and then feel underappreciated. But whose fault is that? So let's talk about some examples of leaky boundaries. So one is being part of and answering group texts. This is huge nowadays, right? We all have our phones and people are texting left and right. I've had to remove myself from several group texts or group chats because I don't believe that we need to be in constant communication with others. I know that's not the norm nowadays. People feel that they need to share everything with everyone, especially on social media. I don't feel the need to talk to family members or friends all day long. I just don't. And if somebody needs me, they know they could reach out to me directly. And if there happens to be an emergency, well, they can call 911. There's not much that I can do about it, right? So I invite you to do the same. I invite you to assess, how many group chats are you in? Are they adding value to your life, or are they just like one more thing for you to do, one more thing to check off your list? Are they adding stress to your life? Now, the other thing to think about is email. Oh my gosh. Do you reply to emails as soon as they land in your inbox? Are you checking your email all day long? And as a business owner, listen, I'm guilty of checking my email a little too frequently, but I'm getting to a better place with that. Try to prioritize what's important to respond to and unsubscribe from emails that, quite frankly, don't support your health or well being. I'm very cautious about what I allow in my inbox these days. Another thing is not knowing when to shut down after a workday and being available 24/7 to your coworkers or your boss instead of having a clear work schedule and shutting down at the end of the day. So maybe your hours are supposed to be 9 to 5, but your boss is calling you or texting you at 7 o'clock. You need to communicate that that's not appropriate, or that that's your family time, or whatever it is. And I know that's not easy because, especially nowadays where people feel like their jobs are on the line, or there's a lot of people being laid off. So you don't want to necessarily say no to your boss. But what's more important, your health and well-being, or that job? There's a lot of jobs out there. I just feel like, especially as women in this stage of life, we've been giving, doing. We're not feeling our best. I know even myself, doing all the things I do, I'm still not feeling 100%. So I have to be really mindful of my work and life balance, right? Especially as a business owner. Our clients are incredibly respectful. They know that me and my team practitioner, we have certain work hours. And if they contact us outside of those hours, they're not going to get a response. They will get it on the next business day, but we have outlined those boundaries for them and they respect them. So I think it's important to communicate that. Another thing is attending every event that you are invited to, or saying yes to any demand of your time. And this is especially true for those of you who are moms, when it comes to school events and volunteer work and all of that. You don't want to overbook yourself. We get invited to a lot of events and we simply cannot attend them all. And I used to feel guilt over this, but now I give myself grace. My intention is never to hurt anybody's feelings, but I simply cannot split myself in a million directions, especially as a business owner and somebody who, again, is navigating perimenopause myself. There are days that I just want to be alone. I'm not always in the mood to socialize, and I'm okay with that. So why might you have leaky boundaries? Here are a few things to think about. Maybe you have a need for control. You want to control others. You want to control the situation. Of course, we can go into a deep dive as to why you have this want or need for control. A lot of times that has to do with trauma that you experience. I'm certainly somebody who experienced trauma. I've shared it before. And I do think that that has something to do with the fact that in the past I have had some really leaky boundaries. Another one is fear of disappointing others. You want people to like and love you. And again, that could be due to some sort of trauma that you experienced. Maybe you didn't get what you needed growing up. Maybe you had a parent who was absent. Just some things to think about. Another one is that it was never modeled for you. Maybe you grew up in an environment where there were no boundaries, or there were just very unhealthy boundaries. And nobody ever showed you what it was like to effectively communicate your needs and set those boundaries. Maybe you're a people pleaser. You want to make everybody happy. You never want to rock the boat. You don't want to cause anybody to be upset, or you don't want to disappoint people. And another one is that you may have low self-esteem. Maybe you don't think that your needs are as important as somebody else's. So you're constantly putting others before you. So how can you start putting some of these boundaries into place? So I kind of gave you some examples, but let me just kind of, go over them again. So when it comes to group texts, for example, start looking at how many you're in. Maybe you need to remove yourself. Maybe you need to just let them know, like, hey guys, I'm not available for this. I'm going to step away from this group chat. I have a lot going on right now. Okay. When it comes to emails and your work, like dedicate a certain time of day to check emails or even texts, right? Even if you stay in certain group texts or group chats, maybe you're only checking them in the morning or in the evening, not throughout the day, getting constantly distracted, and then allowing it to take your time and energy away from other things that perhaps are more important. You may want to consider shutting off notifications. We tell our clients to do this, on your phone, on your computer, so that you're not being dinged all day long. What do you think that does to your nervous system, your cortisol, when you constantly have notifications or alarms going off on your phone or your computer? Only keep the ones that are absolutely important. And I know some of you are parents, and you're going to be like, well, I have kids, or I have kids who drive. I get that. That's a different situation. But even with your kids, you can set proper boundaries. The other thing is creating a work schedule. I kind of said this a little bit earlier, and making sure you stick to it. This is especially important, for business owners, or if you're a working woman, right? You want to make sure that you have dedicated hours. I know that in the past, I used to work all hours of the night. For the most part, I love what I do, so I don't always consider it to be work, but it is work, right? And I shouldn't be on my computer at 10 o'clock at night, where in the past I have done that. And even recently, I've caught myself doing that sometimes because I want to finish a project or I want to write an email, and that doesn't benefit me. It doesn't help with my sleep. And then, of course, that's going to affect my next day, the energy and my mood for the next day. So it's a boundary that I need to work on. The other thing is, start saying no to events or requests of your time when it doesn't feel good to say yes. This is something, again, even as a business owner, I get requests to attend, events in person, or be a guest on podcasts or on summits, or do a live Instagram video or something. And I just don't say yes to it all because it's a lot of time for me, and a lot of energy. And I really only want to do things that feel really good to me in this stage of life, as much as I can, right? We are responsible. We have things that we have to do, but for the most part, I am prioritizing joy and things that make me feel good. The other thing to think about is, you want to start to encourage others who rely on you, or that maybe you have some leaky boundaries with, to find solutions to their own problems versus trying to solve it for them. It's not your job to fix other people or their problems. An old mentor who passed away last year, who I miss dearly, one thing she would tell me over and over again was this. She would say, let people have one rant or one swirl, then say to them, what are you going to do about it? Because it puts it in their court, right? Sometimes people just want to complain, but they don't really want to take action. And especially for somebody like me who is so solution oriented, that annoys the hell out of me when somebody just complains but doesn't do anything about it. And what I used to do was try to give them all these solutions. And then I would realize that that person actually didn't want a solution. They just wanted to complain and stay in a victimhood or victim mentality. And I'm not present for that. I'm just not. If you're going to complain to me, then we got to come up with a solution. And I'm going to put that on you to come up with one. And I will support you in that. Maybe I'll give you some ideas, but you need to be the one to put that into place. So start thinking about that. Is there somebody who's constantly complaining to you, but yet doesn't take your advice? Stop giving them advice, because you're just enabling that behavior. Turn it on them. Okay. The other thing is you want to set expectations with others. I had a client years ago who told me that she was always frazzled in the morning. She was getting her kids ready to school. She was packing lunches, getting them into the car and all that. And her mom, who she had a good relationship with, would call her around that time every morning. And she goes, oh my God, Claudia, I get so overwhelmed. My mom calls me every day. And I said, well, have you communicated that to her, that it's a lot and that it overwhelms you? And she's like, well, no, I haven't. I don't want to hurt her feelings. So I said, well, why don't you kindly talk to your mom? I gave her like a script, just to kind of use. And she said, she was very honest with her. She basically said, hey, Mom, I love talking to you every day. I like checking in, but in the morning, it's really difficult for me because I'm frazzled with the kids and all the things. So can we chat at X time? And that was it. It was a very quick conversation. Her mom was like, oh yeah, no problem. And that changed the dynamic of the relationship because she was no longer feeling frustrated and even resentful of her mother. Lastly, I want you to start believing that when you say no, it doesn't require an explanation. Oftentimes, what I see with a lot of women is they'll say no to something and have to give an excuse, or they'll just over-explain. You don't need to. No is a complete sentence. Look, the reality is there are plenty of things in life that we cannot say no to, like working, paying your bills, caring for your children, or in my case, a needy dog, aging parents. I've shared how, my mom is in her 70s and there's a lot of health stuff coming up right now. So I am trying my best to support her. But I want you to look at the other energy leaks in your life. Really take a step back and assess, how are you spending your time every day? I recently had to step away from a form of communication that wasn't serving me. And unfortunately, the friendship was negatively impacted by that. But I had to do it for my mental health. Quite frankly, boundaries are a critical part of maintaining your mental, physical, and overall health and well being. I firmly believe that. All right. I hope that was helpful to you and gave you some food for thought. Start thinking about who and what drains your energy and really reflect on how your lack of boundaries may be playing a role. All right, I'll see you next week. The information provided is for educational and informational purposes only. I am not, nor do I act as a doctor or any other medical professional. I am not providing healthcare, medical services, or attempting to diagnose, treat, prevent, or cure any physical, mental, or emotional disease or condition. The information shared is not intended to be a substitute for the professional medical advice provided by your own medical or mental health provider.